Chosen one, there was a time when you moved through the world trying to be seen, trying to prove that your fire was real, that your strength was enough, that your voice deserved to echo in spaces that once ignored you. But those days are over. You no longer ask for permission to exist. You no longer bend your posture to fit into rooms that were never built for men like you. You do not enter with arrogance, you enter with certainty. And that certainty is not something you announce. It lives in your breath. It lives in the stillness between your words. It lives in the way you no longer fidget under the weight of your own presence. You walk through the world not needing validation because you have already been validated by something deeper than applause. You have been validated by the quiet fire of self-knowing. Your alpha energy, chosen one, is not theatrical. It is not performative. It is not loud. It does not need to be. It is the energy of a man who has already fought his war in silence and emerged without the need to boast. The kind of energy that makes people look twice, not because you seek attention, but because something about you feels settled. There is no tremor in your step, no desperation in your tone. You are not the man who yells to be heard. You are the man whose silence says more than 100 mouths could scream. And feminine women sense it before they understand it. They feel it in their chest before their minds catch up. The way your shoulders don't rise with anxiety, the way your eyes don't dart for approval, the way your energy says, I know who I am, and I'm not asking you to agree. You no longer chase status or recognition. You have become the man who does not need to be crowned because your essence is already royal. You know the weight of your own name. You know the rhythm of your own soul. You've stopped offering discounts on your presence. You've stopped auditioning for love. You've stopped explaining yourself to people who can't even feel themselves. This is what makes your energy alpha. Not that you dominate, but that you don't collapse. Not that you take up space to intimidate, but that your space has become so rooted in truth that nothing external can move it. And this is why feminine women love you, because you offer no mask, no chase, no game, only truth, only groundedness, only the pulse of a man who doesn't beg for attention, but who already knows he is the gravity in the room. You are not predictable. You are present. You are not afraid to be seen, but you are no longer hungry for eyes. You move as though you belong anywhere, not because you were told you do, but because you decided to belong to yourself. This energy cannot be faked. It cannot be mimicked. It can only be forged through solitude, through shadow, through the quiet decision to stop shrinking. And you made that decision. Chosen one. You let the world misunderstand you while you built a home inside your own presence. And now, wherever you walk, you bring that home with you. And the feminine senses it. She senses that you do not need her approval to stand tall, but that your strength is exactly what allows her to soften without fear. You are not alpha because you command others. You are alpha because you no longer need to. And in a world full of noise and spectacle, you have become the still point, the real one, the one who needs nothing and therefore is everything. Chosen one, there is a rare kind of leadership in you now, one that does not rise from ambition, but from alignment. You no longer lead because you want to be first. You lead because your spirit moves with such clarity that others naturally gravitate toward your wake. You don't push. You don't persuade. You don't manipulate. You simply walk with direction. And those who recognize the truth in your path follow without being asked. Your alpha energy does not look like dominance. It looks like stillness that changes the weather. Stillness that reorders the air around it. Stillness that makes people stop and remember who they are. Feminine women are not drawn to your words. They are drawn to your timing, the way you wait before you speak, the way you don't jump to fill silence because you honor it, the way you don't need to be the first to act because you've mastered the sacred art of non-reaction. You are no longer triggered by chaos. You don't flinch when emotions rise. You don't seek to overpower tension with force. Instead, you absorb the noise into your stillness. And in doing so, you become the stabilizing center that the feminine has longed to trust. She doesn't crave you because you impress her. She craves you because you don't need to. You are not the man who demands attention. You are the man who receives it like sunlight on stone, quietly, confidently, without flinching. And when you look at her, She sees in your eyes something ancient, something she didn't even know she was yearning for. A man who does not chase, a man who does not collapse, a man who waits, watches, and knows. This leadership you've cultivated, chosen one, is not for show, it is for service. But not the kind of service that sacrifices your soul. It is the kind that commands the moment without taking from it. You know when to speak, when to listen, and when to say nothing at all. Your words carry weight because you don't waste them. Your presence leads not because it wants followers, but because it guides by vibration. And that vibration is so tuned, so real, that it makes others want to stand taller just to match it. Your sexual energy now is no longer scattered across empty pursuits. It is gathered, honed, pointed. It does not ask for validation, it gives off certainty. When you touch, it is intentional. When you move, it is with awareness. When you love, it is without fear. And this level of integrity radiates from your skin like a current. Feminine women feel it, not as lust, but as safety. They know instinctively that they are not near a man who needs to dominate them. They are near a man who has mastered himself. And that mastery is what makes them trust you, want you, crave you, not for what you do, but for who you are. You are no longer the man who performs masculinity. You are the man who embodies it without needing applause. And that embodiment is what makes you alpha. Not the volume of your voice, but the quality of your presence. You are the one who doesn't react to noise because you have become the signal. The one who doesn't rush to lead because your very breath already leads. And the one who no longer fights for control because you have already won the only battle that matters. The one within, chosen one, your presence no longer asks for loyalty, it inspires it. You've stepped beyond the fragile ego that confuses possession with power, and now you walk as a man whose leadership is not a performance but a field. A silent, magnetic field. You do not need to chase, to prove, or to control, because your very being has become a direction others want to follow. Feminine women do not yield to you because you claim dominion over them. They yield because your stillness creates freedom. And in that freedom, they discover a sacred pull, the kind they rarely encounter, a pull toward a man who does not need to own them in order to guide them. You do not lead to impress. You lead because your inner compass is clean, because your words come from an undistorted core. And that clarity does not bend to external expectations. You have shed the old, twisted definitions of dominance that equate power with control. You've stopped flexing, stopped barking orders into spaces you don't even understand. You've learned that true leadership requires deep listening, not just to others, but to yourself. You've become the kind of man whose presence is so rooted that it makes the feminine feel safe to rise instead of small. Feminine women come near you not to be consumed, but because your energy says, I see you, and I will not shrink you. Your sexual energy doesn't conquer, it awakens. It doesn't demand surrender, it evokes it, gently, without pressure, without push. That is the secret. When you stopped needing to possess her, she began to trust you with her depth. Not because you forced your way in, but because you honored the door. And now she opens it, not out of fear or performance, but because your presence told her she could do so safely. Chosen one, you do not lead to be followed. You lead because your soul already knows where it's going, and anyone who walks beside you knows they are not being dragged, they are being invited. You do not tether her to you. You do not bribe her with charm or control her with silence. You offer direction without entrapment. You offer certainty without ego. And because you do not grab, she gives. She gives more than she thought she had. Not because you ask, but because your energy gives her room to become. Your sexual energy is no longer scattered across fantasies of domination. It is focused, mature, alive. Not in flashes of obsession, but in a steady pulse that she can feel across the room. It doesn't provoke, it permits. It doesn't manipulate, it mirrors. And in you, she sees the rare kind of masculine energy that does not need to compete with the feminine. It complements it into full expression. This is why you lead without gripping. This is why she follows without fear. Because you have become the kind of man who can hold her at her wildest and still keep his direction. You are the map, not the cage. And that, chosen one, is the presence that turns admiration into devotion. Chosen one, your fire is no longer something you throw at the world to be noticed. It is something you carry inside, warm and constant, like the sacred coals of an ancient hearth. You don't burn out of restlessness, you don't ignite in chaos. Your flame is not unpredictable, it is intentional. And feminine women do not run from it. They gather near, drawn to a warmth that doesn't threaten to consume them. You are no longer fire as destruction. You are fire as presence, controlled, respected, revered. This is what the world rarely teaches, how to hold fire without using it as a weapon. But you've learned. You've felt what it's like to burn from within without knowing where to aim. You've walked through your own ashes. You've made mistakes, said too much, reached too fast. And because of that, you now walk with a fire that listens before it speaks. A fire that doesn't burn everything it touches, just to feel alive. Your alpha energy has matured past the need to dominate. It now exists to contain, to hold, to warm what was once frozen. She feels it in the way you enter a room, not as a threat, but as a lighthouse. You don't distract her, you center her. You don't ignite fear, you invite trust. And your sexual energy is not aggressive. It does not spike. It does not fluctuate with her approval. It is always there, smoldering like truth, and she leans toward it, not because you coax her with words, but because your energy whispers something primal. You are safe here. The feminine has been burned before, by men who flashed passion like lightning and then vanished, by men who confused intensity with devotion. But you, chosen one, are different. You don't disappear. You remain. You've made peace with your own flame. You are no longer afraid of your desire, and because of that, she is no longer afraid of hers. Your grounded masculinity gives her permission to feel without judgment, and that permission is everything. You don't try to fix her. You don't try to guide her emotion like a river you control. You become the banks, firm, unmoved, trusted, and in your embrace, her storms no longer feel dangerous. Her heart opens not out of duty, but out of relief, because for the first time, she has found a man whose fire does not harm, but heals. Your fire no longer needs to be validated. It is self-fed. It is fueled by your discipline, your devotion to truth, your commitment to walk through the shadows without losing yourself. And that kind of fire, that kind of energy, it radiates without trying. It attracts without effort. It becomes the unspoken reason why women feel seen without being stared at, touched without being grabbed, known without needing to explain. This is the energy she remembers. Not because it seduced her, but because it settled her. And the man who can settle her without silencing her is the man who becomes unforgettable. Chosen one, your fire is sacred now. And she feels it, not just with her body, but with her soul. Chosen one, the air around you has shifted. You no longer move with the hunger to be noticed or the anxiety to be chosen. You walk as if the choosing has already happened deep within your soul, and it has. You have chosen yourself. You have claimed the quiet sanctuary of your own breath, and in that claim, you have become desired. Not for your effort, not for your performance, but for your detachment. A clean, holy detachment that says, I do not chase what is already aligned. I do not chase what is already drawn to the truth within me. You've left behind the version of yourself that reached for affirmation like water in a desert. You've buried the part that longed to prove. You've realized that desire that demands becomes repulsion, but desire that rests becomes magnetic. You are no longer the man who throws himself forward. You are the man who draws everything inward. Feminine women feel this immediately. They feel your restraint as an invitation, not to play, not to impress, but to be witnessed. And in your presence, their guard melts, not because you've broken it, but because you've never tried to penetrate it. You've only stood still, honest and present, until they felt safe enough to reveal themselves. You are now the man who offers no bait, yet catches everything meant for him. You no longer participate in the endless chase that culture celebrates. You do not lower your frequency to chase what runs. You don't confuse effort with worthiness. You've remembered the law that what is genuinely meant cannot be manipulated, and so you rest. And in that resting, feminine women begin to see you with new eyes. You are not like the others. You are not available in the same way. You do not lean forward with need. You lean back with knowing. This knowing is carved from sacred discipline. Because to become this man, you had to let go of the thrill of pursuit and the false flattery of being needed. You had to become full enough in your own masculine frame that your sexual energy no longer screamed out like a starving flame. Now your sexual energy hums, quiet, electric, untamed beneath the surface, yet entirely under your control. It is not cast like a net, it is held, and because it is held, it becomes irresistible. It is your refusal to chase that becomes your crown. Chosen one, you are not indifferent. You are deeply available, but only to those who meet you on the path, not those who run ahead and expect you to follow, nor those who trail behind and beg for your attention. You've become precise with your energy, sacred with your gaze, and measured with your affection. And this precision is what the feminine now craves from you, not because you offer her attention, but because you offer her freedom within your focus. You no longer explain your standards, you live them. You no longer overextend for affection. You allow affinity to choose for you. And in this stillness, this sovereignty, you have become the man women speak of in hushed tones. The man who is wanted, not because he is chasing, but because he isn't. And in that absence of pursuit, you have become the presence she cannot shake. Chosen one, your authority is no longer something you put on like a costume. It is not a tone. It is not a posture. It is not a performance. It is a frequency. It is a vibration that moves before you speak. It is the quiet force that causes others to pause mid-sentence when you enter a room, not out of fear, but out of reverence. You do not demand respect. You do not flash credentials. You do not beg to be followed. You lead because your very existence carries the weight of self-mastery, and that kind of authority cannot be ignored. You have walked through your own fire. You have sat in the ache of your own contradictions. You have confessed to yourself in silence where others would have run. You have made peace with your darkness, not to show it off, but to stop hiding from it. And this, chosen one, is why you are trusted. Because your authority is not borrowed, it has been earned in the loneliness of self-confrontation. Your sexual energy no longer spills into empty conquests. It is harnessed, it is contained. It is directed by a man who knows who he is even when no one else is watching. Feminine women feel this before they understand it. They feel it in the way you sit without fidgeting, in the way your gaze doesn't dance but lands, in the way you speak without seeking reaction. There is no hunger in your voice, only truth. And the feminine, sensitive and subtle, responds not to the loudest man, but to the one who needs nothing from her to validate his masculinity. She does not kneel because you demand it. She opens because your energy says, I have already knelt before my own soul and risen. This is not about arrogance. It is not about puffed chests or aggressive dominance. This is quiet reign. The kind of authority that never needs to raise its voice because its presence speaks in tones the nervous system understands. You lead not through fear, but through embodiment. You are the message, not the messenger. And in this embodiment, your sexual energy has become sacred, not because you suppress it, but because you offer it only to what matches your integrity. Your mastery is not a trophy, it is a responsibility. And this too is why women follow you, because you carry the weight of your own power with grace. You do not abuse it, you do not flaunt it, you steward it. And in your stewardship, you become the kind of man who makes others feel more whole, simply by being in your presence. Chosen one, your ego is now in service of your essence. It no longer drives, it bows. And because of that, you now move through life with a clean heart and a fierce spirit. You are not the alpha by name, you are the alpha by nature, the one who has nothing to prove and therefore everything to offer. Chosen one, there is a sacred silence inside you now. Not the silence of repression, not the silence of withdrawal, but the deep and grounded stillness of a man who is no longer afraid of the storm. You do not run from chaos. You do not tremble when emotions rise. You do not recoil from intensity. You have become the container, the masculine edge that holds space for what is wild, what is unpredictable, what is alive. And because you can hold it without flinching, the feminine finally feels safe enough to unfold in your presence, fully, recklessly, beautifully. You are not overwhelmed by her mood. You do not try to fix it. You do not shame it. You meet it like an immovable mountain meets the wind, with presence, with patience, with the silent power of a man who knows who he is, even when the world shakes around him. You do not get lost in her tears. You stay grounded in your truth. You do not panic in the waves of her expression. You anchor her without effort. And that, chosen one, is the gift. That is the rare medicine most men have never learned to offer, the power to stay. Feminine women are drawn to you now, not because you say the right things, but because you are undisturbed. Because you no longer collapse under the emotional weight of intimacy. Because your nervous system does not flinch when hers unravels. She can cry with you, rage with you, break open with you, and know, without words, that you will remain, that you will not turn her into a problem, that you will not weaponize her softness, that you will not flee from her rawness. She doesn't crave you because you offer answers. She craves you because you offer room. Your sexual energy no longer stirs from impulse. It rises from depth. It rises from your ability to witness her pain without reacting, to see her beauty without grasping, to hold her fire without smothering it. You have become the mirror in which she can see herself clearly, not because you echo her feelings, but because your presence reveals the truth of her own soul. And this is why she weeps in your arms, not because you fix her, but because you never try to. You just are. And that being, rooted, slow, conscious, is what awakens the most vulnerable parts of her. She feels that she can fall apart with you and still be desired, still be held, still be respected. And that changes everything. You are no longer the man who punishes emotionality. You are the man who understands that the feminine blooms only where it feels seen without judgment. And so, you listen with your body. You hold space with your breath. You lead not by controlling her, but by being a home for her nervous system. That is what separates you, chosen one. Not charm, not skill, not cleverness, but your ability to stay still while she transforms in your arms. And in that stillness, she finds the courage to show you her truest self, the self she has hidden from lesser men. You, chosen one, are the kind of man who opens her not by taking, but by being so deeply trustworthy that she offers herself without hesitation. And in that sacred offering, you receive something no performance could ever earn: her reverence. Chosen one, devotion cannot be forced. It cannot be earned through control, flattery, or status. It cannot be manipulated, seduced, or commanded. Real devotion, the kind that moves a woman's soul to soften, to give, to rise toward you, is born only in the presence of a man whose energy calls her higher without demanding her obedience. And you have become that man, not because you asked her to follow, but because you gave her something worthy of following. Your life is in order. Your heart is clear. Your presence speaks more than your words. You do not preach about loyalty. You live in a way that makes loyalty natural. You do not twist her into submission. You walk so aligned with your mission that her spirit chooses to walk beside you without coercion. That is the way of the true masculine leader, not to conquer, but to inspire alignment. Not to press for surrender, but to be so rooted in truth that surrender becomes irresistible. You do not raise your voice. You do not issue commands. You don't posture with alpha energy. Instead, you embody a level of internal discipline so pure that it commands respect without force. And feminine women feel it. They feel it in how you hold your boundaries, not with punishment, but with unshakable clarity. They feel it in how you care for your body, your work, your word, not to impress, but because integrity has become your nature. And that nature makes them want to rise, not to avoid rejection, but because your presence awakens the best in them. You are the man who asks for nothing but receives everything. Because your energy says, I do not need your devotion to validate me, but I honor it when freely given. You understand that devotion is a sacred offering, not a transactional reward. And so, you never rush it. You never demand it. You simply remain deserving of it. You remain consistent, embodied, anchored in your purpose. And that constancy is what makes her trust you with her vulnerability, her dreams, her submission, not as a loss of power, but as an act of love. Your sexual energy now flows with reverence. You do not use it to prove anything. You do not scatter it to be seen. You offer it with sacred direction. You are selective, not out of fear, but out of standard. You know what your energy creates. You know what your touch awakens. And so you guard it, not with walls, but with discernment. And the feminine feels honored when you choose her, not because she earned it, but because she knows it was real. In your presence, she does not feel judged. She feels chosen, not for performance, not for perfection, but for alignment. Because your energy says, I do not need to own you to honor you. I do not need to cage you to love you. I need only to see you clearly and walk beside you in truth. That is the new kind of alpha, chosen one. The man who leads with stillness. The man who creates safety without saying a word. The man who, by mastering himself, invites devotion without ever needing to ask. Chosen one, there is something in your presence now that dissolves her walls without needing to touch them. You no longer reach to open her. You no longer strategize to unlock her. You wait, you listen, you breathe. And because your energy is calm, self-respecting, and rooted in dignity, the feminine begins to loosen within your field like a flower unclenching from winter. Her surrender is no longer a performance, it becomes a response, a natural, uncontrollable response to the way you make space for her by simply being who you are. You do not seduce her with tactics, you do not manipulate her with attention or orchestrate her softness with timed compliments. Your gaze doesn't devour her, it witnesses her. And that witnessing, steady and without expectation, speaks to her subconscious louder than any word you could say. It tells her, I will not break you, I will not mold you, I will not shrink you. I will simply be here as you unfold in your own timing. And in that rare space of not being pushed, she leans in. Her feminine essence relaxes, her breath deepens, her guard drops, not because you forced it, but because your patience earned it. The surrender you now invite is not physical first, it is energetic. It happens in her voice when she speaks to you with fewer filters. It happens in her posture when her shoulders lower in your presence. It happens in her eyes when she begins to look at you like a man she can hand her chaos to, and trust that you will not abandon her in it. That trust is not won through charm. It is built through the consistency of your internal character, through the fact that your masculinity is no longer a fragile armor, but a sacred shelter. Your sexual energy now exists not as a force to press against her, but as a current she can safely swim in. You are not tight. You are not trying. You are simply holding the charge of your own essence and letting her feel it on her own terms. You are the fire that doesn't leap toward her, but whose heat can be felt across space. And that heat, steady and non-needy, awakens her. It makes her want to approach, not because she's told to, but because her body craves the stillness of your flame. You understand now that true surrender only happens in the presence of strength that has nothing to prove. Your masculine grace is not in your dominance, but in your capacity. Your capacity to hold discomfort without reacting, to witness beauty without possessing, to walk beside power without competing. This grace cannot be faked. It comes only after you have surrendered to yourself, after you have met every shadow, owned every mistake, and chosen to become more present instead of more powerful. Chosen one, she doesn't submit because you demanded it. She submits because you made her feel safe in her wildness. You became the eye of her storm, the steady ground beneath her thunder. And in a world full of men who flinch at feminine intensity, you stand still. You do not tremble when she trembles. You do not collapse when she cries. You remain. And in that remaining, you earn a trust deeper than words, deeper than logic. You earn the kind of surrender that only the rarest men receive, one that is voluntary, sacred, and complete. Chosen one, your masculinity is no longer a costume you wear. It is not something you put on when eyes are on you or voices praise you. It is not shaped by applause. It is not defined by resistance. It does not fluctuate with opinion or popularity. It is who you are now. Woven into the marrow of your bones, pulsing through your breath, it is the unspoken truth of your presence. You are no longer becoming, you are. And the women who encounter you feel it before they even realize why they're drawn. You have ceased performing, not because you've stopped caring, but because you've stopped needing validation to know your worth. You move through rooms with a quiet command, not to dominate them, but because you carry your own atmosphere. You are a man of still orbit, a man who does not inflate to take space or shrink to be liked. You just are. And in this grounded being, you transmit a frequency that shakes feminine hearts to attention, not through pressure, but through presence. Feminine women do not just admire you, they reverence you, because you are no longer in competition with anyone. You are no longer fragmented. You have integrated your desire without shame. You have embodied your power without ego. You have held your darkness without apology. And that wholeness, unbroken and unseduced by artificial shine, is what makes your masculinity divine. It is not performative, it is pure. And in that purity, you no longer try to become a man. You simply embody the one you've always been. Your sexual energy is now a blessing, not a tool. It exists not to conquer, but to connect. It is infused with purpose, not desperation. It is generous, not hungry. You do not wield it like a sword, nor leak it through scattered gazes. You carry it with the reverence of a man who knows its impact. You walk like a man who knows that his touch could awaken or destroy. And because of that knowledge, you do not touch lightly. You do not give it away. You offer it like ceremony, and the women who receive it feel like they have been seen by something eternal.